All right, guys, welcome back to another video. This is gonna be another basically discussion video talking about the whole cantarella situation because my girl has caused so much strife in the gosh space right now for many reasons. One of them is because she's a massive fucking whore. The other one is because she can swim faster, so people are losing their minds over that. So this is basically just me giving my opinion on the whole situation, and we can just talk about some things I feel like some people are kind of, that I personally feel like some things people are kind of missing on this whole situation. So basically this whole situation, right, with Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, we now have the power of hindsight. We do, because we can look at those two games and see what not to do. And one of the things that I've seen, that I've learned from those games, is as a community, we have to learn how to nip shit in the butt. You have to learn how to basically say, no, we don't want this in the game, period. Or it can go into some pretty gray territory, right? So we look at cantarella, right, with her ability to swim. And you know, this whole controversy that started up because of this, right? You essentially have three types of people talking about this situation. You have you know, my favorite, the people I like to call the Dway fist fuckers, you know, the people who just love Dway's fist up their ass, being sitting there saying like, you see, Wuthering Waves is just as bad as Genshin, you know, blah blah blah. And that's just not the case. No, Wuthering Waves has never been as bad as Genshin, and honestly probably will never be as bad as Genshin. Wuthering Waves, let's keep it real, Wuthering Waves is everything Genshin could have been, and it's coming from somebody that still plays Genshin. That's just the fucking truth. Then you have and then secondly, you have like the pretty normal people looking at the situation being like, yeah, I can understand why people are like, feel a certain type of way about the situation, but at the same time, it is just swimming. You know, the moment you can start flying everywhere, it's not that big a deal. And then you have, you know, the massive curl bots who essentially believe Wuthering Waves is the second coming of Jesus Christ, and Genshin Impact is the worst thing to happen since OnlyFans. You know what I mean? It's the tribalism is very, very, very potent with this situation. But this is just my take on this whole situation, and I think a mindset that I think a lot of people kind of need when it comes to these gacha games, right? When it comes to these gacha games, right, you can't treat them, at least in my opinion, you can't treat them the way you would a normal live service game. And the reason why I say that is because in gacha games, unless it is given to you directly for free, everything you are paying for, either with money or with your time, you're paying for everything, right? From the 5 stars to the 4 stars, even the 3 stars, they all cost money, everything, right? And because there is monetary incentive for these characters, for everything in this game, right, there are very slippery slopes where you need to draw lines. You need to say no, period. Like, no, ain't nothing. Like, you can't, like no, like, don't do this. No, right? And I think the cantarella situation is a very, very, very eye-opening situation, or eye-opening thing for this situation, because I think a lot of people, right, when you look at the cantarella situation with her being able to swim faster, a lot of people are making the argument that it's very minuscule, it's very non-issue, it's not a thing, it's not that big of a deal, right? It's not as bad as Genshin, all of which are true. But I think the people who are normal, not the shit stirrers, the Genshin community, the people who are normal, what we're talking about isn't cantarella herself. It's the concept that she brings along with her, and not just with her. Like, you have Phoebe, there's Shorekeeper's sprints, or her ability to turn into a butterfly. There's Lumi, who straight up just lets you run like 20% faster with her skill, and nobody's complaining about that because she's a 4-star. You know, it's like, it's this whole situation of characters having passives that make exploration more convenient in an exploration game, right? The concept of that, where for me, that should not exist, period. It shouldn't exist, period, for me, right? And I think a lot of people need to adopt that mindset, because when the people were saying like, oh, it's just a swimming, when you sit there and say those things, right, you're giving these developers an out for them to take advantage of, for them to constantly dip their toes into making more and more characters that have these quality of life exploration mechanics. And right now it's a non-issue. Yeah, I'm willing to, like, right now it's a non-issue. Them letting and if they let them fly, sure, yeah, it even becomes even more of a non-issue. But when you don't nip this in the bud, right? When you don't nip this in the bud, you're allowing them to take more and more baby steps that will inevitably cause an issue. It will inevitably cause an issue, right? Like, with the power of hindsight, right? With the power of hindsight, you're able to look back in Honkai Star and be like, okay, Silver Wolf was the beginning of the end because she allowed the concept of being able to circumvent the elemental system. And because of that, now we got fucking Acheron, Firefly, Boot Hill, and then fucking Anaxa, who just straight up does what Silver Wolf does, but on steroid laced with fentanyl. You know what I mean? It has that whole situation. But the question will always be there is, if we nip that shit in the bud, if we said, hey, don't do this, don't be releasing characters that like circumvent the elements, don't do that shit, stick within the barriers of the game, would that have changed the outcome of the game? Right now, Hoyoverse being Hoyoverse, the option of that, of nothing changing being a thing, is very much real. It's Hoyoverse, right? But the question will always be there. If the whole community came together and said, what you did with Silver Wolf, don't ever do that shit again, there could have been a different timeline. There could have been, right? Like me personally, right? I like Zenless. Zenless right now is my favorite gacha game. I play it more than Wuthering Waves. It's my favorite gacha game, right? I think there needs to be more people talking about how Miyabi needs to never happen again. Like they should never ever fucking release a character like Miyabi ever. That character is way too fucking broken. She can trivialize everything in the game by herself. There should never be a character like Miyabi ever fucking again. I think more people need to make that clear in Zenless Zone Zero, right? More people in Zenless Zone Zero in the community need to make that fucking clear. Don't ever release a character like Miyabi ever again, right? I think with Kuro Games, I think that's what they're missing. With Kuro Games, I think Kuro Games are like the people who play Wuthering Waves, like the Wuthering Waves community. I think they're so rose glass tinted because of everything that Genshin wasn't. They're allowing things that they shouldn't allow, right? Because this is a genuine question, right? This is a genuine question I have for, the people who are saying Cantarella's swimming is just whatever, right? And this isn't me coming like, oh, I know the best. This is just me literally just giving my thoughts, open for discussion. You disagree, that's fine. This is just me giving my thoughts, right? This is a genuine question for the people who are saying, oh, Cantarella is a non-issue, right? And before I ask the question, we need to keep in mind that everything about Cantarella, the way she's designed her kit, everything about Cantarella is to sell her as hard as they possibly can, right? That's why they designed her the way she is. That's why she's a massive fucking whore. That's why her tits bounce like there's no fucking gravity. That's why her tacit mark is on her tongue. They designed her, everything about her, it's designed to sell as much as possible, right? That's the whole point. They're trying to sell this character as much as possible. With that in mind, if her swimming is so unnecessary, right? It doesn't need, it's so unnecessary, and you have better free-to-play options with the boat and the flying, right? If it's so unnecessary, why does it exist? You know what I mean? Why is it in her kit at all? If there's free-to-play options that are better than that ability, why does it exist? Period. You know what I mean? And the point that I'm trying to get at when asking that question is, if it doesn't need to exist, it shouldn't be there. Because you're giving them an out to let them try more things that could eventually be a problem in the future. Because, what's to stop them from being like, okay, so they're fine with a character that lets you swim 10% faster. Okay, what if they're okay with a character that lets you climb walls 10 to 15% faster, right? Or, oh, they're okay with Carlotta, who lets you fly for 10 to 15% faster or longer, right? They're okay with Carlotta lets you swim or fly for 10 to 15% longer. How are they going to feel about a character that lets you fly 10 to 15% faster, right? Oh, they're okay with that? Okay, what if we release a character that gives you a triple jump, right? They're okay with that? Okay. What if we release a character that allows you to use any gadget with no cooldown. You know what I mean? They're continuously, if you don't draw the line and say, hey, we don't want any exploration passives, period. The characters, everything about the kit of a character should only be for combat and not exploration, and then give us free to play options for exploration. Then that should be the case, right? Like if they want to give some type of ability to let you swim faster, put it in a gadget, right? Don't give it to a character, put it in a gadget, right? This is like from my perspective, right? Because at some point they're gonna release a character that's gonna be problematic, either intentionally or unintentionally. It's gonna happen, right? Because when you constantly walk in a direction that is very muddy, you're gonna get stuck at some point. You know what I mean? And I think that's a kind of a mindset that people playing Wuthering Waves are kind of missing, at least in my opinion, where they can't, like, we can't give these developers outs. Like, okay, like, don't get me wrong, Hero Games, fair enough, credit where credit's due. They deserve the benefit of the doubt. They've been doing a pretty good job with Wuthering Waves. Credit's due, given the benefit of the doubt. It is what it is. But still, there should be a line drawn where we say, don't approach this line, because if you cross it, we reach a point of no return, right? Because if you look at Natlan, right, the whole situation with Natlan didn't just happen because of Natlan. It happened from an amalgamation of people not calling out waivers for shit that was very, like, in hindsight, it was very predatory, right? Like the whole quality of life exploration situation with Natlan, that was a buildup of all these past characters that had quality of life exploration that nobody called them out for, all the way up until all the way from 1.0, right? Because the first character that had quality of life exploration was Mona, with her alternate sprint that let you go over water, right? That let you go over water and was significantly faster than regular sprint, right? And then they gave that shit to Ayaka, who was better because she was a cryo character. So when you went over water, it would freeze the water, which would allow you to gain your stamina back because you could stand on it, and then you could just do it again, which basically let you just have unlimited sprints over water, right? And then came along Kokomi, who just let you walk on water with her ultimate, right? And then came I think even she let you swim faster. I think that was also a passive she had. She let you swim faster too. And then came who was after Kokomi? What was it? Scaramouche? Yeah, Scaramouche. Then came Scaramouche, who just straight up let you fly, like, in exploration and mid combat. And at the time, dude was fucking broken because none of the mobs in the game were programmed to be able to aim at a character who was elevated. Like, so if you were fighting any enemy that didn't have a ranged weapon, you were just gone. That's basically how it was, right, with Scaramouche. Then after Scaramouche, they released all the Fontaine characters that you swim faster in Fontaine, which was a problem because Fontaine was the exploration was based on swimming. So you had all these characters in Fontaine. I think it was Nuvillette. Nuvillette let you actually swim faster, but all the Fontaine characters had a special swim passive. I don't remember which one it was, but all the Fontaine characters had a special swim passive, and Nuvillette straight up just directly let you swim faster. And that was a problem because Fontaine had a lot of swimming, right? And then you fast forward, you got Shanyon, who had the triple jump, and now we're in Natlan, where everybody can just fucking defy gravity. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was a buildup. It didn't just happen over time. It was a buildup of people just making excuses and letting it happen. And that's not something that you want to happen for Wuthering Waves, right? Now, once again, credit's due, benefit of the doubt. Pro Games has proven that no, they do think before they do things, right? But at the same time, a lot of times, sometimes they don't. I mean, look at the launch of the game. How long did it take for them to fix that shit? And then you look at the course of the game, the amount of people who are saying they would have quit Wuthering Waves if it wasn't for 2.0, they aren't perfect human beings or perfect game devs who just get it right on the first try. You know what I mean? Which is why we as a community, we have to say, hey, don't do this shit, so that they don't even attempt at something that's going to make us unhappy, right? I feel like that's a mindset I think we kind of need to have when it comes to like these gacha games, especially because you have to pay for these fucking characters. You know what I mean? So my whole thing isn't like my whole thing is, I understand both sides. I do. I understand people are saying, oh, it's just swimming, who cares? Because the reality is, it really is just swimming, who cares? But at the same time, like, if you do say, hey, it's just swimming, who cares? You know, what's gonna happen if they release a character? Because we're saying it's swimming, who cares? And we're telling these developers, yeah, we're totally fine with characters with quality of life exploration. What's gonna happen when they release a character that does become a problem, right? Because in these gacha games, reacting is too late because they can't change the character. So reacting really is too late, right? The moment they release a character and that has a passive we don't like, we can't do anything about it because they can't change a character, right? Because it's against the law. If they make a character worse, which is very broad because who knows what making it worse means. If they can't make a character worse. So 9.5 times out of 10, when they release a character, that should stay in the same. You know what I mean? So my whole point is just, I think we really need to be a little bit more proactive when it comes to slippery slopes, right? Slippery slopes, you just need to be more like, hey, don't walk down this path or you're gonna fall off a cliff, right? Like at the beginning of the trail, we need to say, don't walk this path. We need to put a sign up, say, hey, don't walk here. You're gonna fall off a cliff, right? I feel like that's more of a mindset we need to have with this community, other than saying it's not Genshin, so it's good. You know what I mean? But that's just my opinion on this whole situation. That's just me. So, you know, like I said, this is my opinion. You think I'm wrong, I'm totally up for discussion. But, you know, that's just how I feel about the whole situation.